It is a really, really cool experience. Just now getting to get our looping machines out, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was very, very experimental, but also getting to know each other's sense of harmony and rhythm. And
greetings. Welcome back to Your Blue Dreamer broadcast. I'm your most humble host as always, Dr. I, coming through with your latest Blue Speak. Today I've got a very special guest, a Sir Alfred Darlington, aka Daedalus. Welcome to the Blue Dreamer broadcast.
Thank you.
Oh, right on.
Nice to be. Not so much, sir, but that.
Oh, I apologize.
Certainly suits. No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
I only say, sir, in ways of your persona, which is something that definitely caught my eye early on when I got into you. So I only mean it in that way.
It's all good. Yeah. No, I definitely put on the guys for a few years there.
And I love it. You know,
Awesome.
a bit of Mozart, you know, a bit of, you know, just a bit of classical. And so, yeah, thank you for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And I'm always grateful when someone that I looked up to in a way does this with me, and I really, really appreciate it. So welcome to the Blue Dreamer broadcast.
Thank you, and thank you for shining a light. I appreciate people who aggrandize the culture that we're all trying to add to. So thank you.
Respect, you know, and to me, you know, the reason I do this, in all honesty, is because I have questions. You know, I've been a fan of music since birth, I would say, and any opportunity to pick someone's brain, you know, especially someone of the creative capacity, and you know, it's for me to learn more about myself in a way, if that makes sense.
No, of course. That's
and
the best.
That is my approach to this, you know. So I'm very honest. I'm very open-minded. I'm very willing to accept anything that anyone has to say that has helped them or along their musical journey, because I am still a student. I am still learning. I'm going to be 47 this year. And the Blue Dreamer broadcast is basically my iteration of my band right now. I'm not in a band. I've been in band since I was 14 years old, playing guitar and singing. Now this is my band, my one-man band, you know, and the thing I can discuss best to my capabilities is music, you know, so.
Perfect for this brief, you know, time that we have together. Let's so to speak, let's make a track. Then.
Respect.
Let's produce.
Respect. So
yeah, that's awesome. I love that concept though of having whoever's on here as your collaborator in that moment.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm used to being rhythm section, so that's awesome.
Cool. As you know, I mean, I'm a vocalist. I get out front and do it, but most of the time is because I was in a 3-piece band and nobody else wanted to sing. So I was like, okay, I'll do it, I guess. So I definitely want to dive into your origin story. I always start at the top. And I mean, early on for me, not obvious to everyone, but I think Accordion was the first song that I had heard of you, you know, MF Doom. And I was going through a lot of, Def Jux, and, you know, it was the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And I was just starting to find I was getting into Portishead and like Mark Farina type stuff. And then, you know, and this was all growth out of rock and metal. And, you know, this was the next point in my journey where I was getting more into electronic music and just different styles, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely came in under that portion of it, you know.
Yeah.
So where did your journey begin, you know, I always ask from the beginning, when did music infect you and become, like not a
Yeah.
sickness, but
No, might as well have been. I mean, I was obsessed, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. That there was this kind of haunting aspect of my ear first, and everything, all the other senses
yeah,
in some secondary. Um, I found myself lost in my parents' record collection, and I loved Los Angeles's radio. It was so full of beats and weird bass, a lot of things like rave and kind of other deep house and whatnot. I wasn't always the fan of the 4/4 when I first started out, but I couldn't help but like want to be amidst these kind of like great movements and things.
yeah,
There was also a lot of record stores that I was a big beneficiary of growing up. So not only my like plundering my parents' record collection and kind of being adrift, but also these just like these iconic, very like mean spirited, like very high fidelity esque record stores where you'd be in a bin looking for some pop, whatever was on the radio. And then like the person who was at the counter would tell you were terrible and you were ignoring all the good stuff and you should be over here and you should be listening to that. And I mean, they were gatekeeping, but in the kind of reverse way, they were like actually like, oh no, you should be listening to this good stuff. And not what was obvious. We lack scarcity nowadays. So I don't know if people would understand quite that feeling of being told you're wrong.
Right.
In a way that is meant to be merciful and not kind of mean-spirited.
Constructive criticism, basically.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And as a listener, it's sometimes hard to be like, no, what do you mean I'm wrong? Like, I love this song. Like, Vanilla Ice or whatever terribleness was going on when I was a kid. And I wasn't a fan, but I understand how people would just be like, oh, I heard this 10,000 times on the radio. Yeah. How can this be bad? Like, it's making money. It's getting platinum records. This is like the stuff that people... kind of base their metrics on. And so how could I be wrong? But then, of course, the counterculture in LA has always kind of found a way in on the mainstream, both in terms of when gangster rap, when pop, that was actually brought forth a lot of like really incredible freestyle fellowship voices were also kind of swept up in the kind of rush to sign everybody that was doing anything even similar.
Right.
So we have people like AC Alone getting mainstream records that would still be considered underground, I think, in terms of sales, but it's just different. So when I try to describe my origin story and I'm like caught in this mix of all this like choppy water, I found myself both a beneficiary of that and also then lost in how I could participate. I'm like a kid from Santa Monica who took every music course that was available to me. I was in band, orchestra, marching band, chamber groups, like whatever I could do to get myself closer to the sound. I wasn't especially good at any of it. I've been teaching music more recently, and I'm oftentimes struck by like, oh, these students would have run rings around me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I just have like the long arc to like kind of have to do my thing. But then I love that. That kind of lack of talent made it so I had to go really deep on something. And a lot of that was indeed trying to be a better listener, trying to be a better empathic player and performer to the music that I was interested in. And so with the music that really then pushed me out of my sorts was rave records from the early 90s. This breakbeat hardcore, UK hardcore stuff that sampled things like Kool Keith when he was in Ultramagnetic MCs, would sample John Barry, James Bond soundtracks, would be unafraid to go plunder whatever record come out a few weeks ago, spin that their own way, get it up to crazy speeds, pitch up vocals, do all these things that were like out of sorts and were probably more made for people who were high on very specific designer drugs.
For sure.
But me as a young person, basically being addled in such a way that my brain was already fizzing without the need for substance. I loved it. That was the big revelation for me, was that you could do that. You could sample this music and make it all these different platforms, all these different things, this jazz, soundtrack, this kids records, and synthesize it into something that really moved in a beat that was mine, like 13-year-old me.
The music was your drugs, right?
Oh my gosh. And it really would push me. Like I just like in hindsight, like, I mean, I have a child now and like, I can't imagine him sitting still long enough to just like listen to a whole side of a George Clinton record and like just be staring at the wall. Like, I wonder what my parents must have thought when I was doing that. I was literally just headphones on, just like probably still as a mouse, just, who knows what I was thinking.
Right.
probably looking at that cover, the kind of crazy cover art that those Parliament records have, and like having different fantasies and thoughts. But Gersh, yeah, it's a trip to think about in hindsight, especially with a kid.
Yeah. And so, were you doing radio? Did you do radio and stuff? And
I did, yeah, a little later. So like in the high school days, like didn't have the opportunity to do that stuff. I was a participant as a player and performer, but as much as I was like listening to records and even starting to collect records, I didn't have any insight to production. I wasn't doing anything electronic. I got like a 4-track, like a tape 4-track.
Yeah, Tascam
or some bass invention stuff. And I'm sure I could dig that up somewhere, and it's terrible garbage, inevitably. But I would be playing in bands and stuff anyways, close to the source, but not knowing the thing. It wasn't until I got to college. I went to USC, and there I met some like-minded people who were also into the rave stuff, maybe a little bit more serious about it and about the DJing art. And I fell in line with this KSCR was the name of the local college radio station. And so much good came of that. Not as much good came of being in the actual music program at USC. I studied double bass and I was learning jazz, and I was like, okay, this is the work. And here I can go have fun at the radio. And of course the fun is what became my life. And the work kind of started to just fall by the wayside.
Nice. That's great.
It was nice, but I it's like, why did I spend 5 years? Why wasn't it like I on the street, like learning the craft in the trenches like others? I did this really weird circuitous route because I didn't know any better.
Okay.
I think, I don't know if anybody knows better. I just think, like
of
maybe
course not.
the beneficiary of somebody being like, who had gone through the experience, or even just older cats who I could kind of like point to. Like there wasn't old people in hip hop or electronic music growing up.
Right.
That was something that you would age out, and that's a frustration now. It's wonderful that it's not the case anymore. We have, these definitive figures in all these realms that are like still proceeding and doing vibrant work.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said for like, hey, this is something that exists for those who want to breathe fire into it.
Yeah. I mean, and also the accessibility of connection. Like we're doing right now,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You would ask me 10 years ago, you're going to talk to Daedels? I'd be like, there's no way. It's not even possible. But
I mean, I love the fact that the proximity is something that you're talking about, and that previously the only way to, kind of have a convo, like even like a fraction of this would be at a show.
Exactly.
But then it would be loud and noisy and smoky and dense and inebriated or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, it would have been a very different nature.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that, and there's a million things we could talk about as far as technology, and maybe we'll hit it at the later in the conversation. I have, obviously AI and things like that, and these buzzwords. But I want to stick to the beginning for now. When did you get into production?
I think frustrated me saw the DJ at these raves, especially when I was like a little too young to have been going, but still trying to be with the music that I was loving. So like at the age of like 14 and 15, in my last days of middle school, earliest days of high school, started to already encounter some of this rave culture. And I really thought the DJ was doing all that stuff.
Right.
I was so so out of whack with what was really happening.
Interesting.
And not to belittle the use of a DJ who's then selector and proceeding to like show you the path by which the longer arc is.
Right.
But I was interested in what was happening measure to measure, like that amen break going a little too fast was everything. It was, like that stuff was so rad. And again, the chip chop vocals and everything. So I was really invested in that. I just really thought the DJ was doing. It took me a little time until I got into the kind of radio production to start to understand what an edit could be, what a version and what a remix. And that was the gateway to, well, if I'm expected to do edits of these tracks so that I can kind of like make my mixtapes, which I bungled into, because that was the expectation when you were going to go book gigs as a DJ. You would have this thing you would kind of hand to the promoter, like, hey, check out my stuff.
Right.
Here's an actual tape with a mix I made, all analog on vinyl. And it's, in hindsight, it was like, how did I do an hour-long side, or like a 45-minute side of a tape pretty flawlessly? I don't remember how many takes I had to do to get it right. But like, and then the expectation was to do that live would have been insane, because so many of these like juggling, editing, kind of little scratching things, just to get the music. So, but that gets you in the mindset of production. Like, well, if I can change this much, well, how much can I change if I just got this bitch piece of technology or this bit of access to my own ability to manipulate the sound?
Yeah.
Or what if I could get non-linear about that? So around that same time, I got an Akai A3000 sampler.
Okay.
And I fidgeted with some synthesizers and just like started to get into the hamster wheel of what production tools could be.
Yeah.
But I think it shows up in my earliest records that I was plunderphonic. Like I was so addicted to the sample amidst other samples and the kind of the zippering that would happen between all these different elements together.
Yeah.
And I so esteemed people like Madlib and later Dilla and some of these hip hop producers, or the Bomb Squad, maybe more importantly, maybe more looming in my life, who could take an individual measure and make it a song, like that loop, that feeling you could get when something it's like perfectly constructed and it can just operate measure to measure, and you kind of get something different every iteration that it repeats.
Yeah.
Oof, that's the stuff.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get there.
I mean, I feel just as much as I do, I make beats, and and when I say make beats, I use samples and mesh them together. I would call my approach collage as opposed to beat production. I mean, what I like to do is basically take intros that are single note, or not single note, but single instrument, and then chop those and then put it together like a band. I come from the band perspective, so I'm creating a song with a band of samples. So that's how I do that. That's my approach, and I grew up, my brother, taught me about hip hop from the 80s, and him and his friends would be breakdancing on cardboard in the garage, with Run DMC and early Beastie Boys, and I was hearing all this stuff, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of cool too. Like, I like this. And then hearing Prince and Madonna on MTV, because, my brothers and sister were older than me, and then my first band, I think, that I got into for myself was Queen in like junior high. And so, and then my parents listened to a lot of Motown and James Brown and, Tower Power and all that kind of. So I was just like inundated with
a lot of great, though, a lot of really good sources to point towards.
And it is, for me, I'm a rhythm player at heart. I mean, I'm physically both, I have great rhythm. I don't need a metronome. I'm pretty good with it like that, but I can't shred. I'm not this soloist, shredder type person, and I never took any proper lessons as far as, in that fashion. But, the rhythm speaks to me, and so, but when I do, my beat production, it's like the elements that I pull out without knowing what key they're in, they just tend to fit, and like without much adjustment. It just made me, what you were just saying was that kind of basically like, not exactly, but how much detuning and how much pitch shifting and is necessary, what I mean? Or not necessary, but to me, I just have the thought that it's more natural than it is, even the picking of the elements, the digging, the sound selection, I'm
a big fan of the microtonality that shows up in sampling, because if you don't immediately regulate the sample to be in like a rigid, perfect A440 tuning, there is a lot of tendency as you pitch things up or down, especially with older equipment, and that adjusts the pitch. You get to these either really sweet or frictional microtuning systems that exist only within the pocket of itself, the universe that it works in. And because you're sampling sources that were at once to a key or a pitch, they're going to be in communication. And sometimes that makes for this like really garish but perfect sonorities that would never occur if you were really, again, like on a synthesizer that had everything digitally controlled, oscillators to do their thing. And that's part of the sweetness of early synthesizer music that then also communicates, but also a lot of those productions you're pointing towards, which weren't, aligned metronomically or digitally. Yeah, and there really is something to be said for that still being somewhere in the pop charts. Just that the fact that somebody's willing to not have everything be ruled by the digital absolutes. Yeah, and it's what, and also part of that I love is that there is so much music out there. The
with the connectivity of social media and you know, I'm not big on obviously the streaming, you know, everything is against the musician and the art at this point. I mean, I feel it always has been, you know, when
That's
it,
the thing, though. It always has been. I mean, we lived
yeah,
in the shadows of like a giant major label system that
yeah,
was the key to the distribution networks, and the only way to be independent was to like really grovel and just play tiny rooms and
right,
basements. And you know, you
yeah,
mentioned some bands at the top that were like that were a testament to that independence, but
yeah,
also sadly are not better known, even though they were like absolutely the fundamental bedrock that a lot of this culture has been built on.
yeah,
And then, you know, we had a messy transition in the 2000s, maybe where the industry was upended, but that's all been sewn back up, like
right,
between streaming, like you mentioned, or
yeah,
just the kind of where AI and some other things are headed in terms of just the control, the tight control over copyright.
yeah,
It seems like that little daybreak that happened with an MP3 kind of, yeah, it was short lived. Even then, it was, you know, it was easy enough to get your songs distributed, but hard to get heard
right,
amongst a million or thousands of people. Millions of people are uploading to SoundCloud,
yeah,
and just, you know, I'm amazed sometimes that any of us could persist in the, you know, the headwinds. You're being 47, I'm 48. We lived in an interesting moment where we both saw that previous industry that had to do with like, you know, the terrestrial,
right,
you know, you had a CD or you had a tape or you had a vinyl, and that was the only way to communicate
right,
intent.
mm-hmm,
And then now the absolute disillusion of that, where it's like the CD tape, these are luxury items now.
yeah,
Those are things that somebody can buy when they want to kind of hold something, but they don't really listen on that. They listen on their one song on whatever.
right,
I'm happy there's some alternatives that are appearing in some really fun ways that people are engaged with that conversation, but it's tough.
yeah, yeah,
I
you
love it
know.
though. I love it. You
No,
know.
and what I love about it is the vastness of
Mhm.
material that's out there by people that may never make it big or
Mhm.
whatever that means, you know, and I love doing this
Mm.
because I'm compiling these playlists that go along with the interviews, and it's all new artists, you know, I'm not making money off of any of this. It's just because I love finding new music. I love digging, you know?
I mean, and I appreciate that love and adoration come across, but you deserve to get paid for it. Just like the
Oh,
people who then, you know, use your content at some distance to profit. You
sure.
know, you should get a better share of that. But we don't have the right government to
Yeah,
be able to process that,
exactly.
much less worldwide copyright to understand what the artist's intent is. So
Yeah, like I've
you're
asked,
doing
you
the
know,
Lord's work, so to speak. Yeah.
yeah, I've asked friends, like, you know, or I've talked to a friend and just said, you know, I wouldn't feel right making money off me putting out these DJ playlist things that I put out, you know, because they're not getting paid shit. So why should I get paid? You know what I mean?
I
Like,
feel you. I feel you. But then, like, there's just such a bigger pie where there's just smaller,
right,
smaller. The Venn diagram is one tiny person in the middle who makes a lot of money
right,
off of all these different sources.
right.
So, you know, there's
Yeah,
no way billionaires should ever exist, but the only way it could is if basically all of us are turning our pockets inside out
yeah,
for
and there's a
sure.
concentrated, yeah,
Yeah.
middleman or top man, I guess, you know, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I just it's for the love of the game, you know, and that's
Mhm.
how I see it. And talking to these young cats or guys that are older than me or guys that are the same age, you know, these people that are out there, you know, doing the art and I hear it. So I'm just like,
Mhm.
hey man, like I interviewed this band a couple weeks ago. They come from Tijuana, but they live here in San Diego now, and they're just great. They're a two piece. They're reminiscent to me of like the Black Keys, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh man, you guys are awesome, you know. And they're like, hey, well, we have a hard time getting gigs in San Diego. I was like,
Yeah.
why? He's like, the politics, man. There's just we don't
Yeah.
align with the politics, and I'm just like, oh, that's so sad. Like,
But you know, the cool thing, of course, is that you know if they can find a way of navigating these straits, they may find that their mission aligns more with some other cities, and that is the classic
right,
sauce that gets them elsewhere, gets their banner flown, and then eventually San Diego will celebrate them, or
Right.
Tijuana even. You know, eventually they're going to be like held up, and they'll have a whole festival named after them if they can just persist through.
I hope so.
It's just always the case, right? Like, years later, somebody's like, I was at their show. Like, no, you weren't. No, you weren't. Nobody was. And then it boomerang effect is real. So
I think the innocence of discovery for me is definitely what makes me continue to do this, because I'm finding new artists constantly, and it's like I'm like, man, is it ever gonna stop? No, of course not. Somebody's always out there doing something, and I resonate with it. There's a resonance, and I'm like, yes, we're on the same vibe, on the same frequency, and I definitely love that. And so my first thing is like, oh, go on Instagram. Hey, want to do an interview? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's how I run.
Sure. And the sad truth is that the majority of people stop their journey of music discovery around the time that they're 23. Apparently, is this critical 23 to 27 is when most people decline from new discovery in music, and then by the time they're 35, they even kind of cease listening to the songs that they were motivated by when that critical 13 to 18 age. It seems like the lifelong fan is kind of a misnomer. A lot of people kind of jump off any form of volition by that point, and be it because they have lives or families, or kind of the work takes over. But people kind of start to be in a much more like whatever the program is telling them to listen to or like, they kind of are on. I'm curious if there's a moment in like people's 50s or 60s where that discovery comes back, or that kind of renaissance of like, oh, what did I listen to back then? And like, who knows what that's going to feel like for people like us when we had such messy audio listening paths in our youth. But I like the fact that people who are usually already entrained with the music culture, and people like yourself who are in bands and kind of living the music, will never stop discovering new things, because it's part of the obsession, it's part of the music, the calling. And we're not doing the average thing, but that makes us at ends or at opposition with our peers sometimes.
And we're bouncing ideas to each other, if you're willing to, if you're open to it, what I mean? Like, it's inevitable.
But openness is a tough one to keep with, especially if you feel like you've been burned because culture tells you you're wrong, and a lot of culture is like naysayers and gatekeepers and all that kind of stuff. So
to remain grounded and receptive is definitely hard. I would say, especially for someone who's been told no a lot, or been told you're not good enough. Of course, but and that's why I guess I'm trying to be encouraging, because dude, you guys are great. Make more music. What I mean? You have no excuse.
100%. Get out there, always the answer.
What I mean? Make me some more music, please, because you guys are awesome. Don't do anything else. One thing that definitely caught me, I'm not a big gear head, but I've always been into gear ever since I started playing guitar, buying guitar pedals, and going digital from analog, and just everything, going from tapes, like a Tascam 4-track to a DAW in, Acid Pro in a $100 tower I bought with a CD burner, and I just started chopping everything up that I could, anything, and just mishmashing it, and like, oh, this is what I do. Like I said, the collage style. I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's a great phrase. That works. Oh, look, it's a song. Like, okay, cool. That shit works. Like, So, but I remember at some point, like, seeing when you started bringing the Monome on your stage performance, and I was like, what the hell is that thing? Like, it has no lettering, no direction. I mean, it's got direction, but it's just these little tiny white buttons on this big little box. And I was like, what is that?
It's a grid of 256 buttons. It's the Monome. I actually got it in San Diego, or I got wind of it in San Diego. Brian Crabtree was going to school there. I want to say UCSD. And I came down to do a show in 2003, so a hot minute ago, and I saw him using a really primitive one-line version of it, so only 16 buttons in a row.
Wow.
But he was chopping breaks live in a non-linear way that like nothing had ever approached before. Like, I had seen people doing live sequencing, and there's certainly the kind of like big beat music of the late 90s where people had like their lights on the sides of their glasses and were using millions of dollars of gear on stage, and it was cool, but it was like absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
And at that point I was fidgeting with lots of live sampling, but in these kind of like really like, SP202 or SP303 and some other kind of weird sequencers and stuff. So I was trying stuff like you were describing, like ripping apart a sample, putting it back together and seeing what it felt. But when I saw Brian tearing it up on that one line of 16, I was like, please, whatever you have cooking up, I need to be part of this. I really want to, like, your own mentioned use or interest in the culture. It seemed like that I just saw such a bright flash of the future, and I just know I needed to get on board. And so I begged and pleaded, and then eventually he continued school at Cal Arts, and I caught up with him later, 2003 or whatever it was. Yeah, it must have been 2003 still. Caught up with him at Cal Arts, and he had made a prototype, a 16 by 16 grid, where each line was one of these kind of sample ripping sequences, or not sequencer exactly, because it was this nonlinear thing, but this ability to translate that like feeling of ripping apart audio and putting it back together in unique ways. So I got on board then, and I've been using it ever since. It's just been my and it totally answered so many of the questions I had about like, well, if this music is meant to be chopped and kind of regurgitated, how can I get my personality involved? And with a press of, with actually intoning it in a way that almost felt like a breath or like an instrument, solved that for me, even though it was digital, even though it was still like needing a laptop at some level to make a communicator work. And over years, it went from MIDI to OSC, which is a faster protocol. It still was kind of remained dumb. It's lacked velocity and some other things, but the software has gotten better and allowed for all kinds of integration. And suddenly it feels even more vigorous, but it's still communicating the same idea. It doesn't change that much. And I feel like, the kind of same waters that you're talking about playing, and I've done much the same. And I love shows that are then like really honest to the crowd that you're in front of, or your own interests that you want to bring forward. And that's been my MO since. Yeah, for sure.
I just had a thought right now that your style is, to me, digital and analog at the same time, because I wrote it as a note, which I usually ask different artists, digital versus analog, and kind of, because in my own personal experience, growing up the way I did and with music, and I feel like I was always the one that embraced technology the most with all my friends and bandmates and whoever, because I was always aware of new gear as far as, and then like Positive Grid, I don't know if you've heard of them, but one of the first, amp simulator on computer, digital, all that stuff. And I was just like, oh, that sounds cool. I want to embrace that. Like, it sounds good. Oh, it almost sounds like a real amp, and it's only grown exponentially, and now it's ridiculous, and in a good way.
Well, sure. And if I may, like, I like the same kind of like schism between analog and digital, just in the sense that we fool ourselves into something different. Anything that's not breathing air over a reed is effectively digital, especially when it's hitting digital signal paths. It's like, and also just, there is an honesty to analog in terms of it's actually using either voltage or kind of pushing a potentiometer, whatever it is, to kind of be so infinitely precise between the difference between a 0 and a 1. But when our ears are kind of dumbed down and the MP3 is the format that we're esteeming towards, or whatever, like whatever lack of fidelity, like you're not really hearing all the gradient between. It's like it's very low, low res, so to speak. So I'm not angry about it. I just love how everything has its own opinion. It's like, whatever thing you think is like the top of fidelity, give it 2 years and it'll sound quaint and like lo-fi or something. And it's like, we're going to do that a million more times till we've surmounted this uncanny valley.
I mean, I feel like watching old episodes of something, a TV show or something, anything, you see the fashion and you're like, oh my God, that was the 90s. That was crazy. But sometimes I'll watch videos that was like from 2 years ago. I was like, man, fashion changes so quickly. Like, this looks outdated. And it was like 2 years ago. Yeah, totally. So,
and you can see what they're trying to reach back towards and what it's communicating and saying. And it's there's so much there.
I mean, I almost feel like it's not meant to be. We're not supposed to look at the past, because it's like it's aging itself quickly. It's quickly.
Dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. It's subversive sometimes to have a sense of what's been. So, why they're trying to abolish the history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no shit. No, and I just meant digital versus analog. I mean, as far as your style, whatever.
Mhm.
It's just like even the way you dress. Like I
Mhm.
said, you have your onstage persona, and it's very vintage,
Mhm.
But then you're using this controller that literally has no markings or anything, and you're just like lights up, and and I love that. I think that's such a great way to represent. And then your sound is just, if you don't know what it is, you're gonna get lost. I think, I don't know, like,
I appreciate that. No, I'm aiming for a little bit of a schism between the known and then the kind of nearly known, or the kind of that event horizon that
yeah,
exists out there, that we like, the Victorian that I like to dress towards.
yes,
I think people have a sense of what it looks like, but nobody has a recording of the sound because it's pre-recorded history.
exactly,
And so my early conceit was like, well, what if it sounded like this? What if it sounded like digital and like had all these different plunderphonic nature and stuff? And of course, that had its time, and I think it was a fun conceit to dress towards.
yeah,
But I do get a lot from that idea that like there was an era of wonder and whimsy where people would stare at kaleidoscopes all
yeah,
day, not their phones,
yeah, yeah,
and get something as much of a transactional relationship with that, again, bit of glass
right,
separating themselves from reality, much
right,
like our nowness. So it's supposed to point towards kind of be a reflection or kind of a commentary on now, but I kind of got lost in the individual artist thing, and I've walked myself back from dressing in ties and dandy floppish fashion, but I still adore that thing you're mentioning, and I really appreciate that this is something that you've gotten from there.
yeah,
In terms of one thing I just mentioned, I started teaching at Berklee College of Music not a few years ago.
mm-hmm.
I've since, like, just recently stepped away. Either you're a lifer in academia or you figure your way out, and I think I've gotten my way out. Well, I might still get trapped back in, but
Sure,
I was there teaching electronic performance, and I'm such a firm believer that if you just, again, breathe life into these machines, kind of give it the chance for the misshapen hands, which are very analog, to touch onto the digital, that space in between those two situations, those two modalities,
yeah,
is magic.
yeah,
It's totally magic.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, it's where nature comes in, and
Mhm.
like, even like I was saying, as far as the way I make my beats, and sometimes it's two totally different genres and blah 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 blah
Mm.
blah whatever, but the way they fit is up to me and my ears and my brain, and and it sounds right to me, and it makes sense. And then when I go here into my car, I was like, oh, it still makes sense. Okay, cool. Okay. And then I show somebody else, hey, check out this song. Oh, it makes sense. All right, cool. It still makes sense. All right, it's working, but it's a natural thing, as far as, let me just say this. Let me preface. Let me just say this. Okay, so I wrote down a note: simple versus complex music.
Mhm.
And basically, I'm a simple man. I'm a simple player. I'm very into simplicity. So, and when I hear complex music, what I call complex, is some of the progressive metal bands, and some, even in your fashion, what you do, I'm sure people hear it and just like, what is going on? Almost cacophonous, and it's like, no, 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 no. It's brilliant. You just give it some time. You know what I mean? Like,
That's a I understand that people have they're signed up for different things, and
sure.
some people want music to be a passive pursuit. They don't want to necessarily have it as a sport where you're trying to dissect or you have to reckon with how you feel about individual moments. Some people just really want that, like, affirmed by the music kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I know that isn't my conceit. I really like this pushier
Yeah.
maximalism, but I would hope too that if you just give it time or repeat listens, it does unfurl, and the simplicity, or at least the intent, like there's a abject or single word idea behind almost every song, and be it the title or somewhere hidden in the kind of
Right.
the rhyme scheme of things, I would hope that would shine bright. But I also know full well that, like, I'm not trying to be everything for everyone. Like,
Right.
there's lots of other things to listen to, and I would much prefer people run to their stately pursuits and their kindnesses and their ambient easy
Yeah.
if they want that. If they want something a little bit more cinematic or whimsical or something, then I'm hopefully their person. I'm
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be one of their first asks. But also, it's like, that isn't trending on whatever
Right.
whatever listening platform. platform. So it's great. I'm a firm believer that if you go far enough down the rabbit hole to find me, we're going to be thick as thieves. We're going to be close friends.
Right.
If the 1% of 1% of 1% is raising their hand, like, what else is there? Who's that person? Like, I'm happy as a clam, because so much of the good things that I came across, I mentioned before, this rave stuff, in hindsight, there was only like 500 records of those pressed.
Right.
There's like so few people who know the people who, like the artists that were so bright and big to me, and subsequently are, they made big waves, and they set the culture on the way it's been. Like even EDM owes a big thanks to these tiny artists in their way that they were pushing around culture, but they aren't beholden to that stuff. And so like the fact that I'm carrying it close makes me feel like, well, somebody else is doing that for me. That's awesome. That's like, I've made my victory condition has been met.
Respect. Yeah. As you know, and for me, it's the older I get, the more I try and take myself out of the equation, as far as like, I've had to come to terms with, you are a simple player. You are, I'm rhythm based, and that doesn't necessarily mean rhythm is simple. It's just I'm just using two words that people can understand.
You're recognizing an aim, even though, again, no matter how you sound, I'm not intimately familiar with your music, but I guarantee you there's some people who are like, no, you're playing too much, or this is too weird, but that's the beautiful thing, is that your self-described lane is clear to you.
Yeah.
And that clarity will, no matter if people are musicians or not, they will understand or hear that louder in the mix. And that's a huge win for you in your aim. Respect. If you can fold yourself down origami style to being like one or two or three words, and then that can be the loud thing that you aim towards, be it mixing, playing, technique, all that stuff. It's just going to serve you so well.
Yeah.
But I also know that, like your most clarity won't always come across to somebody who doesn't, or who has just different ends and different interests.
Exactly.
It's just impossible.
Yeah. Completely impossible, yet completely possible at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you will find someone, and even with this podcast that I do, like, I don't do it for numbers, but my numbers little by little, I'm like, okay, that's cool, whatever, that's fine, but it would be nice.
Isn't it far better though if somebody like hears it, they resonate with it, they tell their friends, and they get them on board, rather than like waiting for the algorithm to churn you some sort of good fit.
Yeah. And that's why I do strictly audio. I'm not doing video. I don't care about that. That has nothing to do with me. I was raised in the old school, so I'm going to have an old school approach,
Well, I mean, yes, but then you do have an aesthetic, and I do feel like your personage is part of this. And, be it, I'm not a visual person myself. It doesn't sound like you are very much either, but like there's something in there that I still respond to the fact when people are kind of working on this total body listening. Yeah. And that includes your kind of listening through the eyes to what the sound does.
Yeah.
That someday this will all be resolved, and we're going to have some sort of really immersive, podcast-esque environment. We're not there yet. We're not going to be donning our VR glasses or nothing, as clearly shown by the failings of Mac and all that stuff and their vision goggles. But, I feel you. And I do think that the more we summon our total selves to our pursuits, the more that people respond to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I've been bringing it up to, more recently, just something that came to me when I was doing an interview. And then it was just like, well, like, music is a spectrum. All different colors, all different shades of the same colors. And we all fit in it to some degree. Everyone fits in. Like, I think a lot of my self-doubt and all this comes from my youth, and just, I'm not good enough. I was like, are you going to give it up to music? And at one point I kind of said no, and because I was scared, and I was like, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. I just never connected with the right people to start another band or do this or do that or whatever it was, Even making beats, I'm like, shit, I just wish I could find one down MC to get down with me, and we'll just get down. We'll conquer the world. Like, and it happened at some point, and the dude was just like, oh, I don't need you. I can make my own beats. I was like, all right, cool. I erased everything. I said, good luck. Like, so there's been different peaks and valleys and whatnot, but
I mean, it sounds like you've had a career, which is that's the thing that people dream of, but they don't realize that it's peaks and valleys.
Right.
That success is really on your own terms, and failure too is equally
Yeah.
on the kind of way. Sometimes there's a societal expectation or society idea of what that failings could be, but more often than not, it's our own way that we hold ourselves. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Cool, man.
You've had the full spectrum yourself.
Well, I mean, it's only now doing this and talking to other people that are out there doing it, whatever their age, whatever their approach, whatever their mindset. You know, it's like I bring something up and then we connect and then we have a discussion. Or, you know, I'll realize something that they brought. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Like, I didn't even think about it that way, you know? Just like I bring up this analogy of the spectrum and they're like, oh, shit, I never thought about it. I'm like, yeah, it's true, right? It's cool. Like, we all fit in. We all can be a part of music. Completely. You know?
There's an infinite space between between the sounds for us all to get in. There's not an infinite amount of time to do the listening.
Exactly.
But that's okay. Again,
Yeah.
there's only going to be so much that can come across people's ears.
Or even the creating, you know, I have to find time for that as well. So,
I mean, apparently less and less, both in terms of having time personally and also the time needed, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a child as well. She's going to be 7 this year, so I get it.
Hey, congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So this is the portion of the interview where I like to get into the music. I always ask the artists that I interview if you could give me 3 influential songs, you know, first song from early on that got you into music, at least had a big enough impact on you to want to pass the fan line and be involved, you know. And then the second song kind of midpoint, and then now something more recent that's pulling at your, you know, heartstrings. And so yeah, I always ask that just to get an idea, and it also helps me. Like, I mean, I didn't really need it with you. I was very curious, but you know, I knew what was coming. So, but it's definitely to catch vibes, and then it helps me kind of create talking points and whatnot. But yeah, the first song you picked was Ascend.
Asen, or I've never heard the artist say it.
Okay.
So I don't know for sure. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things that I saw written down. So I say Asen. I've heard other people say similar, but you know what? I don't know better. And this is a really influential, but really small artist out of the UK.
Okay.
Made these rave classics. A Trip to the Moon Part 1, 2, and 3. But in this case, Part 1 was the one that like pushed me around.
Cool. Let's check it out. What year was this from?
1992.
Oh, okay. Oh, damn, early. I might start dancing just so you know. So why that track in particular?
Yeah, but just check it out. So it's actually going to get to the second section where there's even more samples. But the early, that kind of chirped up female vocal is from Paisley Park Recording. This is record label.
Okay.
A lot of the voice, the kind of more hip hop inflected voice, is indeed, I think, Ultramag record. sampling really current music, the breakbeat obviously being very infectious, this kind of a return to Northern soul kind of classic breakbeat usage.
Yeah.
And then check this out right here. We're gonna get to this kind of more hardcore section, but we're still waiting for the kind of breakbeat or light to kind of shine. This is like busy music though. If you imagine mixing this other record to be hectic, but right here.
There we go.
Big old horn. This is John Barry from the James Bond soundtrack. You really live twice. And this schism, this thing between these two forces was so like every light bulb went off in my head that everything was possible. I had never heard music that had this many different emotions, dancing, and also this kind of like non sequiturness. Like at any moment, something else new would be able to be pulled in. And I didn't know any of these sources, but they were all in my DNA somehow. The kind of orchestral, the jazz, the classic soul and R&B, whatever you want to call Prince, hip hop. It was all simultaneous, and it didn't feel of elsewhere. It felt of a new whole.
Yeah.
It's stuff of legend. And the track kind of proceeds on. It has a very cinematic nature to it.
Yeah.
And I played it at raves myself, but I never really heard it totally in its absolute sweet spot in terms of it being loud at like some sort of event in 92 at some field or barn in the UK. It's just hard to imagine. They had laws at that time that made raving illegal in the UK. You couldn't have repetitive dance music. There was a big thing in 1989 with Margaret Thatcher where she kind of made repetitive dance music illegal.
Yeah.
And so they were really renegade in this true sense. And the fact that people persisted with that in this kind of very vibrant way was like, and also the technology had just shifted where you could have samples longer than just a few seconds. Yeah. You'd have like up to 10 seconds of sample time or whatever, like still minuscule. And the fact that ASIM could construct this just like precarious but incredible, symphony of sample sources is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I love it.
And it still holds up. I feel like it still has like an emotional intent. There's still something there.
Yeah. No, I totally resonate with that. And it reminds me of me. That's my approach. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not kidding. I'm like, oh shit.
No, I think we're all beholden to it. Like you may have never heard that track before, but it made waves in this fashion that other people responded to. And then more significantly successful dance music would come and sometimes water it down. You have these like kind of proprietors of this idea, well, it's just throw in a kind of familiar voice or an emotive voice and you get your Fred Agains and you get your Fatboy Slims and you get people who, it isn't like it's bad music. It's just easy mode compared to like more discontent or disconcerting ideas being proposed in one track.
Yeah. I mean, just sample placement was like, oh yeah, I'm all about that right there. It's in there for me, man. That's where I put my stuff.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's right.
Exactly. Cool. Next, you picked Mr. Oizo.
Yeah, Mr. Wazo. It means Mr. Wazo. Bird. No, yeah, but it's all good. Yeah, okay. He's a funny one. He's probably the most influential figure that made the Ed Banger and kind of French sound that was happening in the aughts.
Okay.
This track, I kind of picked it as being like, I could have picked easily some Madlib joint or some Dilla, some of those people who were really consequential, but I kind of wanted to go off the map and play this really influential to a lot of cats in the beat scene, especially.
Okay. It's called Drop Urge Need L. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah.
Drop her and Johnny and I was giving you my guess, what isn't she? Did junkie pictures them for the current of their distraction? The friend of the very dark who did guess before I actually seen it.
That's crazy.
I just want to point out, if I can, I know you're playing the track. I don't want to talk over it too
No,
much.
you can. Go ahead.
But like, if you notice,
Does he always needle drop? Does he always do that?
No. This one,
Okay.
this whole particular record, this Must Have Happy Scissors record, is very needle droppy.
Yeah.
But actually, in a lot of ways, this is like a little bit of an outlier for some of his earlier stuff. He made this hip hop stuff. He made the song called Flat Beat, which was like a big, successful late '90s hip hop European song that was instrumental. And that instrumental hip hop was a little hard to come by. I don't think that where the beat didn't need an MC necessarily, it wasn't just immediately talked over. And a lot of the early beat scene stuff in LA was kind of beholden to these few tracks, Funk Strong, Mr. Wazzo. There was a handful of other people who kind of like did it. It was like the blueprint, but still like we were trying to do other stuff. We were innovating. But this record in particular, this kick snare pattern, which is so 4/4 but so hip at the same time. It really is reminiscent of what Dilla was doing. He just would add a tiny kick before the drop of a kick and some more sloppy hats. Yeah. But the same kick snare back and forth was the undergirding of a lot of his music. Just maybe not this fast, but if you sped it up, it would be really similar. Yeah. It's not for nothing that you can make a 4/4 grid pattern still swing if you have the right connection between the sample source or the oppositional movement of like the needle drop or all that kind of stuff. And it's so fertile ground, again, like another big, it could sound kind of symphonic, that little like arpeggiated progression sounds so symphony-esque and so uptight, and then everything else so dirty and pushed. It's so, it's tough.
Contrast, it's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. It's so cool, man. Oh, yeah.
And famously, Fly Low Flip Stunt, another song off that same record, to be some of his earliest work that would inform Los Angeles and others. We all were really feeling it. It was such a moment where France could suddenly be doing beady stuff, and him and Paro One, and there's a handful of other producers who just were making like fucked up stuff. Great.
I hear Daedalus on that for sure.
Yeah. Especially some of the later stuff I got into when I finally was like, oh, I can dance. Like, let's do this. And
just the kind of abstract, kind of clunky. It's a little clunky, but right on the beat, man. It's right on the beat.
No, it's good. I don't mind that.
I love that. Cool. Next, you picked Sizzy.
Yeah, this one's new.
Okay.
And I love every once in a while I hear some track by some young artist or some unknown, less known person who like pushes me out of that, like, oh, the world is fine, I get it. Or like, the music world is fine. I understand what's happening. I hear the BPMs. I'm akin to the trends. Yeah. And then I'll hear a track like this where it's like, oh, wait, there's no rules and there's a new wave and I need to get on board and hear this or else I'm just going to get lost. And so, and I love it. I love feeling that like, oh, I gotta get knowing. I love that urgency that can sometimes get installed just by hearing a track. So this was one of those things.
Cool. This is Sizzy, Take My Energy. Let's go.
So some might call this dubstep because it has some of that same 140 kind of energy where you have this kind of lockstep beat mixed with heavy bass sounds.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be quite right because it isn't attempting to have dubstep's kind of wobble bass. It's much more straightforward bass sound. It's not rhythm either, even though rhythm has come along and has a little bit more of that like garish wubs in a different fashion.
Yeah.
And nor is it Dariacore, which is a scene that Sizzy kind of comes from, that Leroy, Jane Remover, Dariacore wave that was existed and kind of has ended and began a couple times and has been its own force. It's not that either in terms of some of the sample usage or the pitched up vocal, the hyper pop adjacency, and it's definitely not EDM, even though it has all some big roomness. It's playing with all those waters, but none of it. It's just something different, and I feel like Sizzy is just this beneficiary of a new normal where you can just make heavy, big room sounds, and it can still, like you said, exactly when that drop happens, what everyone does. Whoa, like
exactly.
It blooms.
Yeah,
it's such a vibe.
You tricked me, you bastard.
No, totally. Yeah. I want to point out that each of these songs has a lot of intro before like the stuff.
Yeah.
But of course, if you just went right into the drop, it wouldn't hit the same way.
Yeah.
I also noticed right here he has a key change, or she has a key change in the song. He has a key change right here. So, oh my gosh. And you get to hear the same bass part just up that step.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people used to understand that a key change could do that, could give the audience a little extra energy.
Upliftment, yeah.
So much electronic music just ignores that. And here I don't think Sizzy did it necessarily on purpose, but here we are. So just to point out, there's like, even if they're not intending to have serious music stuff, there's that stuff is in the methodology of the madness to provide that possibility.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
That's the stuff. Yeah. And you were talking about, or like just, I'm reflecting on these kind of moments in music that either make us or ruin us, or we have to kind of contend with. And this record, that particular song has a lot of that, where I love the activation of it. I love how it made me feel. I'm not that one to do that in turn. I don't have this track isn't in me, but I can listen to it, or I can provide it live in terms of how I rip apart the sample of it. But I'm kind of haunted by the fact I'm not going to do a song like that. I don't know. I mean, I
never say never, but
in its own way, but just not that exact waterfall feeling. I don't think that's not one for me to do, but that's okay. I can still enjoy it and be pushed around by it and want to reflect on it. But I don't know. A lot of producers, they hear every trend and they want to be part of every possibility because it's exciting to kind of be in the wave of it or the energy of it, but it's not.
You never know. Your child, your child may create it and say, "Hey, you want a collab?" And then you get to be a part of one.
Oh my gosh, what a sweet possibility!
Hey, I'm just saying, anything's possible. You know.
Not pushing the music on my kid right now, but I can't help but like I have too many instruments around. I think
exactly. The influence is not far from the tree, you know.
We'll see.
Well, my daughter loves to sing and she draws. She's an artist. She told me the other day, she's like, "Daddy, I'm an artist and I love to sing. I'm a singer." I said, "Yes, you are." 100%. And I didn't push any of that on her. I'm just like, do whatever you want to do. I'll support you. But check out these guitars. Check out this piano. Check out this beat machine. And the other day she saw me making beats and she's like, "Daddy, I want to make beats." I was like, "Yes, you do." So it's cool.
You got a good 7-year-old in your hands. That's awesome.
All right, cool. Now let's get into some Daedalus.
Yeah.
All right. So first song you picked was Experience.
Yeah.
Why this song?
I mean, it's the song for me that was my breakthrough, unbeknownst to me. It's a quiet song on my first record, very low profile, on a record that's full of samples. It's the one that doesn't have any samples. Right. It's just me playing stuff. It has it's a 2-minute song where the first minute is intro that does like nothing. It's interesting. Subsequently, post the fame of this song because of its kind of its inglorious / wonderful sample usage in accordion.
Yeah.
Other people have gone on to sample the song in all kinds of ways. People have taken the main meat of it the same way that accordion does, and flip it into all kinds of trap beats and rhythm and all kinds of cumbia and all sorts of stuff. But like Lucky, the MC, Lucky took the beginning, the intro, and flipped that. Like it's gone on to tell a whole different tale.
Cool.
I mean, I got a gold record out of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just my random bit. It's because Mad Villainy is a masterpiece,
Yes.
and I am so lucky to, because of this song being on that record. Then I got a chance to work with Doom on subsequent records. I've worked with Madlib countless occasions, and I really feel like this broke my way into the LA underground hip hop scene in a significant fashion. Now that like books like this, this is this book by Parker Publishing. It's like this beat makers of LA underground hip hop. I know in some ways, even though I've done work prior to this song getting so famous as it has, it still is the thing that kind of is a callback that gets sometimes my foot in the door with the most odd environments. People know this weird pastoral like quiet ass song.
And it's simple. There we go.
Yep.
Simple.
It's a little deceptive because it's a four-handed part. So I know it's simple sounding, but then
no, exactly. That's all I mean. I don't mean simplistic in the playing. Yeah.
I love it. No, I love how it sounds simple. You're absolutely right. And it's very repetitive. Yeah. But then people get it wrong, so they have to sample it, which is such a weird trick.
I think it gives a good texture to jump off of. You know what I'm saying? Something very basic. Not basic. I don't mean these in any derogatory way. But
no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
So they're just like, oh shit, I have a million ideas. It's like, all right, cool. Well, there you go. You're welcome. All right, cool. Let's hear it. Experience. Nice.
Yeah.
Boom.
Such a small little thing.
That's great though. And done such big things. It's so cool, man.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that.
You never know better than the music. It's such a lesson. And that, was other songs on that record have gotten sampled and other things have gotten used, and I'm proud of it and everything. But that one just has this interesting long livedness that a lot of my other music doesn't necessarily provide. So yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Next is crap. Where'd it go? Sorry. I'm a professional, I swear.
No. This is part of the fun. I have too much music. Trust me. I have far too much music, and I appreciate that you gave me the chance to pick and choose between them.
Yeah.
But truth be told, I could. Oh yeah, One Breath to Breathe.
One Breath to Renew. Yes.
Yeah.
What do you want to say about this track?
I mean, it's a recent track. Part of the reason I picked it is because it looks back at one of my older works. This One Breath to Breathe was on this comp that I did on this Japanese German label, and it was kind of like for the hardcore fans, it was a fun cut that people would come across when they really were going really deep on my catalog. But a few years ago, I wanted to go back and listen with renewed ears, with renewed interest in a lot of my early work that I wouldn't necessarily esteem production wise, but I liked the ideas therein.
Yeah.
And so this renewed series of tracks came out. I did like 4 or 5 of them across these series of EPs a couple years ago, and just had so much fun. But I really do appreciate that it got somewhere different with the addition of a voice, and with the kind of idea of the sad party, the sad disco was so, I'm still feeling it. I still love a good cry on the dance floor. So
Who doesn't?
this track felt good. Yeah.
Cool. Let's go.
What a bright talent. He was one of my students at Berkeley, and not a vocalist, like I said, like just had like these pipes, but then would play bass and stuff. And then just like, wait, you're always playing such cool parts. How do you do that? He's like, I sing it. Like, wait, what else do you sing? And just like, let's get this on tape, so to speak. But the track was largely already there. Like I said, it was revisiting this old dusty track that really, had some similar aspirations, but not those kind of sound sources. And so to renew it felt like fun to put it into color-based territory, or again, like kind of like rhythm stuff, rhythmish things.
Definitely a dance, cry on the dance floor track right there.
Yeah,
the first word that popped in my head was moody, like 5 O's, moody. Like I was like, whoa, I'm getting chills. Sorry, awesome. I forgot to mention that during your songs, I mute the
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Great. No, good. Yeah, that's awesome.
I like to play the whole song in its entirety.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Easy. I was talking over that one a little bit. You probably missed that. But no, it's great. It's great. And yeah, I just will say that like I had such fun making, but arguably being like ode to songs that people have never heard is a funny thought. Like here I am like remixing my own stuff for a song that really was very obscure and would be even hard to come across nowadays. I think it might not be on most streaming services, maybe somewhere. But we do this for ourselves, and then it reflects from that. If we get a satisfied feeling somewhere in that mix, no matter how moody or dancey or crying it is, it's going to reflect that I felt good and satisfied and proud. It's going to come across somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Jumps off.
And then it reverberates to the bystanders. You know?
I hope so.
Man, I felt that. Oh, stop.
Maybe they dig into the scarcity and they do find that original and go like, where did this come from?
Exactly.
What's happening?
All right, cool. Last track. Excuse me. Sorry. Visible Mending.
Yeah. Featuring Salami Rose Joe Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this your most recent release?
It's the most recent full length.
Okay.
I've had remixes and other stuff, but yeah, this is the most recent full.
Okay, cool. Anything you want to say about it?
I mean, check it out, and then we'll talk on the tail end.
On the back end. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Visible Mending. That's a great track, too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I probably would have picked sax. The second two tracks would have been a little bit more different. Rather than that Michael Dunaway and Salami Rose Joe Lewis, there's a little similarity, a little thread that I'm following between those two.
Yeah.
But I do like, it was on my mind. I played a show with Salami Rose Joe Lewis just a few days ago. She's more of a jazz angled cat. She's in like the Brain Feeder thing, swing of things. She often opens for Flylo or Thundercat.
Okay.
Incredible performer and player, but mostly makes much quieter, serene, jazz textured music. It was really fun to pluck her out of the same sort, just like Michael put her into this, electronic, pushy, in this case, a little bit more time free than the Michael track, than One Breath Renewed. But there is some, I mean, I'm loving those color-based, really harmonically rich sounds, smearing sounds.
Yeah.
But other tracks on that record get more beatful and have different dance and stuff. But
That was great. The sway on it made me think of the ocean. I was thinking of crashing waves, you know?
perfect.
Honestly.
Awesome. Yeah, no
Yeah,
better.
and then her voice
yeah.
was panning left and right. I was like, oh, there's little treasures in the water. Like, okay.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You know what I'm
It's
saying?
like nothing is left on, no stone is left unturned in terms of like what can go where, how can we make this wider or more of an experience. But
Yeah. That's great.
that being said, I love, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the pastoral and the ambient and the quiet and the intimate, but I have increasingly over time just been willing to take up more space, especially as less ears are directed. I know I'm on the latter half of a career. I know I'm kind of the outro of things, and I love the freedom that's then afforded. I can make totally melodic, free, harmonic, almost independently, just bizarre work like on What Wands Won't Break, or I can make just the most honeyed things, and nobody will, even barely bat a lash because they just barely know either the beginnings or the ends of things. So I feel very free right now, and I love that.
Get as weird as you want.
Gosh, if there's one thing that you can earn that isn't money,
Exactly.
it's the freedom to be as weird as you wish.
I agree 100%. Cool, man.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. This is a big moment for me, so I really appreciate your time and your insight and your knowledge.
Well, thank you, Dr. I, again, for shining a light, for providing this platform, and for letting me be in the band for just a moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was a great gig for sure. Cool. As always, tell people where they can find you, social media, yada yada yada, all that jazz.
Find me at a show. Pull me aside at a show.
Yes, at a show. Yes, sorry. Yes, please. Yeah. Any gigs? Anything coming up?
Yeah, I'm gonna be playing in Denver in September. Got some LA. Like I mentioned, that Beat Makers book is gonna have an official release of Delicious Pizza on the 24th of July.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a party kind of celebrating all of those cats that were featured in the book. I think are all, almost to a T, are all playing.
Dope.
Those who were with us. And then
and you have a film that just came out, right? A documentary?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Oh, a documentary that's on streaming really soon. I don't know 100% which streaming services are going to carry it, but that's called Big Loud Thing, and it's a documentary about my career, but with the focus on the records. So kind of like what you're doing here, like
cool.
A little bit of a listen through some of the work that came before and either made a difference or made a difference for me. I'm proud of that work, even though it's somebody else's, like the way that they structured things. It's a lot of interviews, but then they figured out a path through it that was theirs. And so I feel a little adrift in that, but it's like a record release. You never know how it's going to work, and it's doing its thing.
Cool.
And then I got some other new music, but neither here nor there. There's plenty of old. So if anyone wants to encounter stuff, hit me up through this episode, but also just keep listening to your offering, and then they'll hear echoes of me in there too.
Right on. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. And as always, I'm your most humble host, Dr. I. This has been your Blue Dreamer broadcast. Always telling people, I hope you're listening. I love you. Stay tuned. Stay connected. Much love and respect. And until next time, peace.